I genuinely believe that starting a NoFap journey is one of the most transformative changes you can make in your life right now. But let's be honest, there's a lot of skepticism around quitting pornography. Our society often encourages both young men and women to watch porn and masturbate, framing it as normal, even healthy. Because of this, millions of people are completely unaware of the dangerous side effects tied to pornography consumption. So today, I'm going to convince you to take on the NoFap challenge and quit pornography for good, using scientific evidence to back up every claim. And to truly understand the impact of porn, we first need to talk about a tiny but mighty neurotransmitter called dopamine. What is dopamine? And why does it matter? Dopamine is the chemical in your brain responsible for seeking and pursuing rewards. It gives you the motivation and drive to chase after potential rewards or long-term goals. Ever crave dessert? That's dopamine. Ever spent hours on a video game trying to level up? That's dopamine. Ever dragged yourself out of bed to go to class or work? That's dopamine too. Without it, you lose all motivation to go out and do anything meaningful. Scientists have even run experiments where they turned off dopamine receptors in rats. The results? The rats became so lethargic they would starve to death, even with food right in front of them. They simply had no drive to eat. Drugs like cocaine, heroin, and Adderall all work by intensely stimulating your brain's dopamine receptors. When your body is hit with unnaturally high dopamine levels, it tries to restore balance, a state called homeostasis, by reducing your total number of dopamine receptors. What happens when you have fewer dopamine receptors? Studies show people with low dopamine often experience fatigue, lack of motivation, insomnia, mood swings, memory loss, social anxiety, low libido, sugar cravings, chronic stress, trouble connecting with others, and an inability to focus. There's also growing evidence that low dopamine is a direct contributor to depression. You might be thinking, that's for hard drugs. There's no way pornography could affect my brain like cocaine. But here's where you'd be wrong. Sexual stimulation is actually one of the most potent dopamine-releasing activities you can engage in naturally. That's because reproduction is essential for the survival of our species, so our brains are wired to reward it heavily. Watching porn can spike dopamine levels by about 200%, comparable to morphine, and not far below cocaine's 300% spike. But unlike cocaine, which peaks for just a few minutes, pornography can keep your dopamine elevated for hours. This is due to something called the Coolidge effect. In experiments, scientists placed a male mouse in a cage with a female mouse. At first, they'd mate frequently. But over time, the male's interest dropped, his dopamine levels fell, and he eventually lost interest altogether. But when a new female mouse was introduced, his dopamine spiked again, and he was ready to go. In fact, if researchers kept introducing new females, the male would mate until he was physically exhausted. This exact phenomenon happens in humans, too. When you watch porn, every new video or scene acts like another hit, another bump of stimulation, keeping your dopamine levels artificially high. And while cocaine use is limited by cost, availability, and overdose risk, it's entirely possible to watch porn for hours on end. The entire time, you're flooding your brain with dopamine at levels similar to hard drugs. Over time, your brain responds by cutting back on dopamine receptors. After years of frequent porn use, you can seriously damage your brain's reward circuitry. This is a major reason why so many men today struggle with social anxiety, depression, and a profound lack of motivation. They're constantly messing with their brain chemistry, and society is cheering them on. It's no surprise, then, that people who take on NoFap and quit porn report incredible changes. More motivation, higher libido, less anxiety, sharper social skills, and a renewed sense of being alive. Why? Because when they stop flooding their brain with artificial stimulation, their dopamine levels begin to normalize. Take on the NoFap challenge. I can almost guarantee you'll experience these benefits for yourself. And if you want a practical guide on how to actually quit pornography for good, make sure you're subscribed. We'll be covering that in detail very soon. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I'm here to help.